Help me grow fast or slow, as long as I know you're digging for gold. Help me learn soft or stern, as long as I know you're digging for gold. Life's a movie, the ultimate trip. You should have been told you'd be digging for gold. How are you, Frank?
I'm 160 pounds of pink steel and sex appeal, baby.
I was just watching one of your pieces and I was roaring. Great stuff.
Well,
Great stuff. So I'm going to start off with a question and we'll just roll.
I'm married, but thanks.
Okay. You good?
Yeah, no, so I'm married, but thanks.
I didn't hear that. Sorry. By the way, I'm just getting over a cold or whatever the hell it is.
Oh, okay.
So if I sound a little raspy, you'll know that that's the reason why. It's not because I ate a chicken bone or whatever. But anyway, I just want to make you aware of that. We are being recorded.
Okay.
And you ready?
Oh, hey, man, I could do it in my sleep.
Okay.
Here
we go. Here we go. Welcome, my friends. Nice to see you all again. I'm Dan Goldberg. As you know, this is Digging for Gold, episode 33. We have another special guest. But before we get to that guest, I want to remind you all, go to dangoldberg.com, go to the bottom of the opening page, click on the icons for YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, and all the other social media platforms. And that helps us a lot. Today, our guest is coming to us from the West Coast. And his name is Frank King. And I have a question for you. Okay.
Yeah.
He's a comedian, but he's a very interesting kind of comedian. He talks about suicide prevention. So how does that work, Frank? How does it work that you're a comedian that talks about suicide prevention?
Well, and this is how I open most of my keynotes, because that is the elephant in the room. Hold on. A comedian talking about suicide prevention? How does that work? I say to the audience, I think a comedian's a good choice, just a comedian, because the world's first comedian was a court jester. Court jester's job was to speak truth to power on behalf of the powerless with humor. I believe I speak to the truth to the power of mental illness on behalf of those often powerless in its grip with humor. I believe where there's humor, there's hope. Where there's laughter, that there's life, and that nobody really dies laughing.
Right, that's true.
Personally, I have what they call lived experience in the mental health business. Depression and suicide run in my family. My grandmother died by suicide. My mother found her. My great aunt died by suicide. My mother and I found her. I was 4 years old. I screamed for days. And I myself have come close enough to killing myself in April of 2010 during the last recession, after we lost everything in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, that I can tell you what the barrel of my gun tastes like. Spoiler alert, I did not pull the trigger. At which point the audience...
Fortunately for us.
Yeah.
Fortunately
for me. The audience nervous laugh at that point. I go, look, it's okay to laugh. That was the point. And last year, a friend of mine that you know, Glenn Friesman.
I do know him, yeah.
Came up after my keynote. He'd never heard me say out loud I didn't pull the trigger. And Glenn, being a comedian, thought he'd be funny. He goes, hey, man, how come you didn't pull the trigger? I go, hey, man, could you try to sound slightly less disappointed? That's where the humor is in the topic of... As for the comedy...
Yes.
As for the comedy side...
Right.
My entire family, I mean, there are more nuts in my family than in a squirrel turd. But they're also almost all of them are very funny. So I come by that naturally. People ask me, were you born funny? Yes, as a matter of fact, an amusing thing happened on the way down the birth canal. But I do believe I was born funny. In fourth grade, at 9 years old, I told a joke. The kids laughed. The teacher was hysterical. And I thought to myself, I'm going to be a comedian. That was, I mean, at 9. In 12th grade, nobody had ever done stand-up at the high school talent show. I thought, all right. So I did, and I won. Of course, I beat the accordion player and the folk dancers, but still a victory. Then I said to my mom, I'm going to LA.
Wait, I'm still laughing about the last.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
I told my mom I'm going to LA. She goes, my mom was big on education. She goes, no, son, you're going to college first. I don't care what you do when you get done. You can be a goat herder for all I care, but you're going to be a goat herder with a college degree. So I went to UNC Chapel Hill, picked up a couple of college degrees, and then got hired by a company on the West Coast in San Diego. Beginning of the end of my was insurance, my insurance career, because in San Diego there's a branch of the world famous Comedy Store.
Right.
And in April 1st, 84, April Fool's Day, not by accident, I went in, did my first 5 minutes. And halfway through my set, Dan, I heard a voice inside my head that says simply, "You're home."
I get it. I get it.
Decided 18 months later, I said to my girlfriend, now my wife of 38 years, I'm going on the road to do comedy. You want to come along for the ride? Figured she'd go, oh, hell no. She goes, yeah. So we gave up the apartment, gave up our jobs, jumped into my tiny little Dodge Colt, and we were on the road together 2,629 nights in a row, nonstop.
Wow.
Yep. Beer
Did you have a
bar.
washing machine in the trunk?
That's no. Well, the great thing about traveling the country like that is I saw family that I would normally only see at the reunion.
Right.
Reunion every other year. By the time every other year came, I'd seen everybody, and we'd stop in, we'd do a lot of wash, we'd spend the night.
It's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Laundromats on the road. Okay.
exactly. So
Wow.
that's, and I believe that my creativity, comic ability, imagination are just the flip side of my depression, thoughts, and suicide. Same brain, same wiring. I mean, there's a reason when somebody heckles me, I can actually heckle back with literally without thinking. I've had people come up and say, "How'd you think that up?" I go, "When you heard it, I heard it. I have no idea." Uh, yeah, it's just, I mean, just the way I see the world. I can teach you to write, stand up, and perform it. I cannot teach you to process the incoming information the way my brain does. It just turns things around. Sees the funny in most everything.
There was an interesting study done years ago, and I just remember the facts of it, but not who did it and who authored it and so forth. But it was about comedians, and that comedians, from an intelligence quotient standpoint, have a higher IQ than the average person by far, because they have to see things through different perspectives.
Yes, and I've never met a dumb comedian. I have met some that were brilliant but had absolutely no common sense.
Yes.
Not enough common sense to come in out of the rain. But yeah, the speed at which the mind has to work, especially if you have a heckler or you're doing audience work where you're talking to the audience. Now, when I do audience work, I've had several heart surgeries. So I'll say to the audience, anybody here besides me ever had your chest cracked? Now I've got 25 minutes of cardio comedy lined up behind that question. So what'd you have done? Bypass. How many did you have? I don't know. I was asleep. Perfect. Uh, yeah, a friend of mine
Yeah.
who's a jazz musician says, Frank, I watch you do audience work. It's like improvisational jazz because the musicians toss the back and forth, and you're
Right.
going back. It's a conversation with the audience, and it's a tightrope. I mean, and some comics think you're being lazy, but if you're good at it, and you can think fast on your feet. I had a woman in Raleigh at Charlie Goodnight's Comedy Club. She'd been sitting down front. She'd been drinking heavily all night. She became more and more disruptive. They didn't want to throw her out because she was drinking Dom Perignon. But at some point,
Yeah.
march her over to the door. I turn away from her to take the attention away from her. And she gets to the door, and all of a sudden she's turning back toward me. And the way I tell the story is she must have heard something sounded like her name because drunks are voice activated. And she screamed at the top of her lungs, F you. And I took a beat and I said, not even for practice. Standing ovation. Where did that come from? I have no idea. It came straight from the back of my head.
It's oh God, that's great. Yeah. Excuse me. With this cold, it's harder for me to laugh normally, and I just Oh God, it's funny. So as you're driving throughout the United States, right? Unless you did Canada, and I don't know if you did Mexico, but nah, it's harder to understand. And the Canadians, that their language, I don't, how do you speak in Canadian? But um, question,
Yeah.
did you find that there are different comedic settings for different parts of the country? Or is it constant? Are there things that are funnier on the East Coast than the West Coast, North, South, so forth?
Yeah, it is in some ways regional. I worked a lot of clubs, and there were a lot of clubs in the South, a lot of one nighters and full length, full week comedy clubs. And there people would come from other parts of the country, like New York. And
Right.
I remember working with a guy named Steve Epstein. He was a contemporary of what's Bill Hicks and Sam Kinison. They were the Texas
Oh
Outlaw
yeah,
Company.
yeah, yeah. Oh, Sam Kinison, yeah, yeah.
But he was from New York. So we're in Fayetteville, North Carolina, in a sort of a half biker, half military bar called Cagney's. And I go up and do my thing, and I'm from the South, so it's home court advantage. I'm talking about the Waffle House, and things that are very prototypically Southern.
Right.
Possums. And he's from New York, and he's not adjusting his act. So he does three jokes to nothing. And then he says, well, if you're too stupid to get that, you're not going to enjoy the rest of my show. And I'm like, oh, dear God, we're going to have to
Who would
fight our way out of here.
who would say that?
I know it's like, oh,
Seriously, who would say
God,
that?
have you
I
lost your
hope he was wearing
mind?
a bulletproof vest.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But yeah. So, and I must admit, I never really did well in New York City.
Mm,
Again, my act was somewhat regional, and I've got a dialect, and I played the improv, and the woman who owned the improv was the wife of Bud Friedman, who owned the improv in L.A.
hmm
And she said to me when I got done, "Well, at least you're dressed nice."
Great, great. Yeah,
Great. Yeah, I never
yeah.
really did well in New York. I did it well in the Midwest, in the Southeast, in the Southwest, in the North, in the Dakotas.
Right, right.
Just I'm not a big fan of New York City. It's not my, I maybe because I'm born and raised North Carolina. Maybe I got that, that
I get it. But you're on the West Coast now. You're on the West
yes,
Coast.
Eugene, Oregon, the People's Republic of Eugene.
Yes,
Yep.
I'm very well aware of that. Did you ever work in Philly, which is where we are now?
Yeah.
Is where the
There
podcast
was
comes
a Comedy Factory outlet for a while,
from.
and there were several week-long clubs in
Yeah,
Philadelphia off and on. So we did a little bit of work in the Northeast, and I did some one-nighters in the Northeast, as I told you, Ambler, Pennsylvania,
right.
one
Which
of the
is
worst
very
nights of my
close
life.
to us, our studio.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh,
Philly is, I think, softer in that respect than New York.
yes, and I had good shows there.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't. I just the Comedy Factory outlet, and there was another full-time club. Plus, what we tried to do, we had no home, so we would try to cobble together week-long clubs and then fill in the gaps with one-nighters. Beer bars, pool halls, honky tonks,
Mhm.
drunk idiots screaming, "Tell us some jokes we can dance to." That's a quote, by the way. Okay, here comes a slow one. You can slow dance. The
Oh, that's a great line. Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, the one-nighters, the hell gigs held the whole thing together.
right.
Wasn't enough week long comedy clubs, funny bones, improvs, punchlines to make a career out of it on the road. So
What do you do now? How much do you travel now?
I like to do one corporate gig a week is my goal. I'm not there yet.
Okay.
A suicide prevention as a workplace health and safety priority speech. I speak on suicide prevention. I'd like to do one of those a week. And you have to do more between September and May, the school year, because
Right.
September is not really a big conference time because the
Right.
kids are out of school. So I'd like to average more. I'd like to average one a week year round is my goal.
That's a good goal. So let me ask you, I see you're coughing. Did you catch my cold?
No, I had a little popcorn before you came
Oh,
on. I got
usually does that because with technology and AI, I just
yeah.
wonder if I'm coughing and I have a problem. can it actually transport itself to Eugene, Oregon? But that's a whole other thing. So I see the TEDx behind you.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about that. You do a lot of TED Talks, don't you?
Yeah, I've got 13. I did my 13th in April, and I booked my 14th for this coming fall. All of them have one aspect of mental health or another to build my brand as a mental health comedian. And I was, let's see, it was 2012 or 13. A friend of mine called me, a business coach, a woman, Carrie. She goes, Frank, I get the feeling you're teaching people to get a TEDx talk for free, and that's got to stop. So she had a friend who built websites. So he built me a TEDx coaching website, and I began charging. And son of
Or
a gun, people are willing to pay. And then it occurred to me, TEDx is great, but it doesn't pay. It's really an authority stage, a credibility stage. You need to take that and
right.
figure out how to leverage it to make money speaking. Raise your fee, build your brand, get more gigs. So my teaching is I teach landing and leveraging at TEDx and how to make money speaking.
Mm.
And my program is, look, we'll get you a TEDx and at least three $5,000 gigs until we do, or we both die trying. So I do an hour a week with everybody on Zoom,
Get it.
applying and
Okay.
applying and applying and applying. And, I'm yours until we get there.
Right. So you do classes for a number of people all at once, or is it 101?
It's both. You get an hour a week on Zoom, and then three times a week. Today, Friday, noon Pacific, is an hour of Ask Frank Anything.
Wow.
Wednesday is I teach them something, or I bring in a speaker friend of mine who's an expert in something. Had a guy he speaks on negotiation, so he did 50 minutes on negotiating your fee. And Sundays is Spotlight, gives you a chance to practice. Let's say you're working on TEDx in front of the other people in the group and get feedback. So
It's
we have three
interesting.
sessions a week.
How about the big TED Talks? What's the difference between a TED Talk and a TEDx?
Good question. And I get that a lot. The Big TED is once a year, Vancouver, BC, 3 to 7 days, depending on how many speakers they have. And most of them are famous. Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Al Gore, um, Elon Musk. Although there are some that are not famous, but have done really well in TEDx, like Brene Brown. I believe she got 1 million views on her TEDx and ended up on stage at the Big TED.
Wow.
The X signifies local. There are 200 plus TEDx talks, events in North America.
Hmm.
Most major cities have one or two, sometimes attached to a university, sometimes not.
Hmm. And then do you know of people that were so successful in one region that another region wants them to do a TEDx?
Uh, on the topic, when I did my first one, I did it in Canada, actually, in Vancouver, BC, on suicide prevention, starting the conversation on suicide. I got a call from two more events. They said, hey, do you have any more mental health topics? Yeah.
Wow.
So I got two more. And then during the pandemic, I have a huge footprint on LinkedIn. I'm a big believer. Pick a social media platform and own it rather
Right.
than, you know,
Yeah.
and LinkedIn has a huge footprint in India, large English speaking democracy.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
And one of the universities, sort of like MIT, I can't think of what the letters are, but it's like MIT, and they have them in each state.
Right.
One called and said, "Look, we found you on LinkedIn. We like your take on mental health because I've I have several talks where I'm talking about the benefits of mental illness. They said we've never heard anybody say anything positive about mental illness. I have a
Hmm.
talk called "Mental Benefits: The Evolutionary Advantages of Mental Illness." That piqued their interest. So they said, "Would you be willing to do a talk here in the state of Assam, India, virtually, of course,
Hmm.
on that topic?" So I did one on it's depressive realism. Maybe the glass really is half empty. There's some science that people with depression see the world more clearly and accurately than people who have a positive cognitive bias. The rose tinted glasses.
Right.
Not a lot of research yet, but some. And Glenn Friesman, I mentioned earlier, he goes,
Right.
yeah, it's the Jewish grandmother. That's who you need on the corporate board. Somebody who's going to poo-poo everything. Oh yeah, Mrs. Smarty Pants. That's going to break. That's not going to break. I'm telling you, it's not going to break. Um, the
Right. Yeah.
yeah, this is a bit topical. Um, LeMay, the guy that was he was a bomber pilot, and then he commanded bombers. Uh,
General in May.
yes,
General in May. Yeah.
I
During
believe.
Vietnam. During the
Yeah,
Vietnam
they
War. Yeah.
tried to bomb him into submission, which of course we all know didn't work out that well.
Right.
But reportedly, he lived with depression. Okay, so now you know this thing in Venezuela, for context. They've compared it to the Bay of Pigs.
Hmm.
Well, during the Kennedy administration, they're all sitting around the table, you know, talking about the Bay of Pigs and how great it's going to be, essentially giving each other hand jobs. And
Hmm.
forgive the vulgar reference.
No, no, no. I would say the same thing. It's
And
okay.
LeMay is sitting there listening. So everybody around the table weighed in until only person left was LeMay, who's reportedly living with depression. And
Right.
all he said to them when his turn came was, "It's not going to work."
Wow.
Guess what?
Didn't work.
Didn't work.
Didn't
Yeah,
work.
something about that positive cognitive bias. There is a negative cognitive bias. I mean, there
Yeah.
is. So that's why the Indian folks were so fascinated that there could be something positive about. And the mental illnesses we have today, I believe back in the day of the cave people were actually could be an asset. For example,
Hmm.
OCD. Uh, you have to gather during the summer 3 months enough food to keep the tribe alive for the 9 months of winter. So who better to organize those stores than somebody who is obsessively compulsive?
Oh, it's very
And
interesting.
then,
Yeah.
ADD, ADHD.
Yeah.
If I'm moving the tribe from summer quarters to winter quarters, I'm going to have these guys and gals walk in point because their head's on a swivel. They're not focused on anything for any particular length of time. They're like you know. I
Yeah.
said I thought about opening a company that provided security for storage units. It's like with meth addicts because they never sleep, they don't eat, they're hyper aware. Uh, you know. So
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
and then dyslexia. I was
Right.
on a ship one time with a guy whose child was dyslexic. And he goes, Frank, I've never heard anybody say anything positive. I've read every book, I've been to every seminar. I have never heard anybody say, I said, well, dyslexics, oftentimes, they have better peripheral vision, oftentimes. And interestingly, they have an amazing ability to spot the anomaly in just about anything. And the joke I wrote was never play Where's Waldo with a dyslexic for money because you're going to lose.
Yeah.
So if I'm moving the tribe, I want the dyslexic walking point with the people with ADD, ADHD, because he or she looks across and goes, wait a minute, you see that thing looks like a tree? That's not a tree. That's a guy covered in leaves. So all these things, now you bring them forward into the 21st century, and you sit a kid who's got ADD or ADHD down in front of a blackboard and expect them to, 50 minutes. A friend of mine taught music in high school. I
Mm.
met him on the ship. He was the guy who managed all the dueling piano groups on all the ships for Holland America. But he had taught high school band. He goes, Frank, you know who my best students were? ADD, ADHD. And you know why? Because on a whim, he said they would get better each class for about the first 10 minutes, the next 40 minutes, just wasting time. So he bought an egg timer and he said, okay, look, I'm gonna set the egg timer at 10 minutes. You're gonna practice your scale for 10 minutes. Scales. Ding. Okay, now we're going to practice those two pieces you're doing at the concert on Saturday, 10 minutes. Ding. Okay, now we're going to practice breathing. Ding. And they're proud
Wow.
because they knew they only had to do it for 10 minutes. And then they're going on something else and on something else and on something. He just stumbled upon that. So
Wow.
sometimes it's not the curriculum, it's the teaching method that makes a difference.
Correct. Correct. I believe that, I'm a university professor too, besides this, and I believe that across the board. Across the board. Um, as a matter of fact, my dissertation had to do with that for my doctorate. But here's an interesting fact. You know that from what I understand, there's a disproportionate number of millionaires who are dyslexic
Yes.
relative to the general population.
And in Malcolm Gladwell's book, David and Goliath, he talks about a desirable disadvantage. That's how I opened my talk on mental benefits. What if those of us with mental illness are not living with a genetic mutation, but an amazing evolutionary adaptation? And what
Wow.
if mental illness is, as Malcolm Gladwell says of such things in his book, David and Goliath, a desirable disadvantage? You would never wish it on anybody. However,
Wow.
sometimes it comes with certain advantages. And
Say that again. Not if
the
it comes.
you would never wish it on anyone. Um, however, it does often come with certain advantages.
Oh,
Desire,
okay. Good.
he calls it a desirable disadvantage, meaning there is an advantage to it. Like,
Yes.
yeah, and there are actually some physical ones as well. The if you in the Caribbean or anywhere, malaria is a big deal. There is some science that the over the with evolution, the human body um, developed the illness became something. I don't know how you develop an illness, but sickle cell anemia.
Right.
In those, you cannot catch malaria if you have sickle cell anemia. So they think maybe over time that was the body's way to adapt. So it's negative, obviously, sickle cell anemia, but the positive, the desirable disadvantage is that they cannot get malaria. So
Wow.
there's several physical examples like that where something happens in the body prevents something else, but of course it has its own negative consequences.
This
So
is very interesting.
so yeah,
So
so
the
Malcolm Gladwell said in the book, dyslexia. He said, this is not a scientific study. He said, but my anecdotal observation is that dyslexic, one of two things happens. They either end up in jail because they could not adapt, or they learn to adapt with their dyslexia, workarounds and such, and they end up as millionaires, entrepreneurs, especially.
correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Uh, Richard Branson is one who comes to mind.
Yeah.
He everybody knows he's very successful. He's dyslexic, and just the idea of what dyslexia is and the way the mind processes information is very interesting.
Yes.
How does dyslexia happen?
Yes. My wife grew up with it, and then going to school in the 60s and 70s, who knew from dyslexia? She just thought she
Right.
had to write a book. However, when she had to read something in front of the class, read a section out of a book, she would go home and memorize the section and stand there holding the book
Wow.
and
Okay.
spit back out. And she she can look at a photograph or a painting and recreate it. So you put them side by side and they're almost identical. How she gets that to come out of this,
Wow.
I
Wow.
have no idea. Just the way
So
your brain.
it's amazing to me. This topic is incredible. And the fact that you've taken this disadvantage, turned it into not only a possible advantage, okay,
Mhm.
and a probable advantage in some cases, and then made it funny.
Yeah, that's
I mean, it's like, okay, I get it, but how'd you do that? I mean, what was it that sparked that change? What was the innovation that you could see this could continue? It,
this.
the comedian talking about suicide prevention.
Oh well, I think the advantage I have, and maybe there are other people that have this advantage, but I believe I think I said the mental health, the mental illness is just the flip side of my imagination, creativity, comic ability.
Right,
So the people will say to me, is the comedy like therapy for no, it's not therapeutic for me. It's just who I am. It's just the way my brain works. Um, so I've been able to take the positive side of that coin, the comedy, and the negative
right,
side of the coin, the mental illness. And if you can make it funny with personal anecdotes, not jokes, then it's
right.
more digestible, more memorable, and And, as a speaker, being vulnerable on stage, a guy up there
Oh,
talking about these things when men don't normally talk about these things.
it's
I mean,
true.
I say to the audience, look, when I get done with my keynote, let's do some general Q&A. But if you got a question you want to ask or story you want to tell, you don't want to tell everybody, I'll hang out another 30, 45 minutes. Always a line. Sometimes two people, sometimes 10. And I mean, I've heard some hair raising. I had a young man, I was on a construction site and I did my thing. And I said, I'll take them individually. Half dozen guys lined up, which is unusual. Guys don't usually share these things.
Right.
Last guy in line, crying so hard he can't speak. So I waited. And when he gathered himself, I said, what's up? He said, well, I haven't slept in 2 nights. I work on the fifth floor of this building. I think about jumping off every day. Why is that? He said, because I've lost 3 people to violence in the last year, including my daughter who died in my arms. How'd you like somebody to pull the pin on that emotional grenade and drop in your lap?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so but given the fact that I mean, Brene Brown said this, and I believe of it myself. I am so comfortable in my darkness. I can sit comfortably with you in yours. So I didn't blink. I waved the HR guy over. I said, look, dude, you need to go get the EAP. Turn to the mental health section. Find the closest mental health facility to where we're standing right now and get this guy, take him by the hand. I mean, literally take him by the hand because he's circling the drain. So a couple months later, I had an occasion to talk to the HR fellow, and I'm terrified to ask, what happened? So finally, I got up my nerve before he hung up. I go, hey, man, whatever happened to that nice carpenter that was? He goes, Frank, he got evaluated, medicated. He's back on the job.
Wow.
Oh,
Saved his life.
yeah. I mean, it's not always that dramatic.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I feel a little like George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life, that I've been shown what people's lives might be like if I weren't there simply to tell my story and hear theirs. And if I kill myself, in theory, I would take a lot of those people with me.
I get
So
it.
I'm afraid, Dan, I'm stuck. That's,
In a good place.
in a good place. Yeah.
In a good place. And it's okay. You and I have spoken off camera about things I've been through. And, as you dig, you can find that most people have been through something
Yeah.
that would drive someone off a cliff. And they're afraid to talk about it sometimes, or they don't want to expose themselves, okay, as being weak,
Yeah.
whatever the heck that means, okay, and and then they just let it sit there in their head, and what happens is it sort of percolates, and
Mhm.
and it's still there, and something could trigger something, and make them cry or get depressed or whatever the case is, as opposed to just being able to talk about it.
And that's my job. And that's often what they tell me when I get there. We just brought you in here to start the conversation on suicide. Because
Right.
when I was searching my first TEDx talk, I realized even though at the time one person died by suicide every 11 minutes in the US, that's like a 737 going down like a lawn dart every day, all souls lost. And hardly anybody talks about it unless you bring it up. And then
Yeah.
everybody, I mean, I'm on a cruise ship. I just did comedy the night before. I'm in the Lido buffet, can't find a seat. There's a woman at a table for two in an empty chair. So I point, she nods, I sit. She looks up, she goes, hey, are you the comedian? I said, did you like the show? She goes, I love the show. And I'm the comedian. She laughs. She goes, what would you have said if I told you I hated it? They say I look a lot like him. Uh, she goes, it's comedy all you do. I get that question all the time. No, I said I'm a public speaker. I just nailed down my first TEDx talk. She says, I love the TEDx talk. What's the topic? Now, Dan, I'd had this conversation many times. I had an idea what was coming. So I said to her, depression and suicide, and started a countdown in my head. 3, 2, 1. Sure enough, she didn't disappoint. Frank, I've tried to kill myself twice. We have just met. First time said college, kind of half hard, not a big deal. Second time, big deal. Graduated
Yeah.
college, graduated medical school, had the knowledge, had the equipment. I had the IV started in my ankle. Suicide cocktail in one hand, syringe in the other. Phone rings. Now she's debating. Pick it up. She thought better because somebody, if I didn't, might worry, come over, interrupt. picks it up, her 13-year-old son. She said, I don't know if you heard something in my voice or had a premonition, but he said, Mom, don't do anything. So I didn't. I didn't give up on the idea of suicide, but I was not going to do it that day because I knew he'd always feel guilty. Wasn't there something he could do or say to stop my suicide? At which point in my keynote, I go, there are things you can do. There are things you can say. We'll cover those before I leave. So I said to her, how old is he now? Said 20. I said, does he know his phone call saved your life? She goes, no. How do you start that conversation? I
Right.
thought that's going to be the theme of my first TEDx, and that's going to be the theme of my suicide prevention speaking, starting the conversation on suicide.
Yeah.
But again, we had just met. We hadn't shared 90 words. And she just told me she tried to kill herself twice. It's like people are just waiting for permission
That's
to
it.
give voice to that kind of thing.
That's it. They're just waiting. They're just waiting to talk to somebody who they know is maybe even fleeting. She probably won't see again for the rest of her
Well,
life. It's not like she's talking to somebody she wants to go out with on a date, right?
yeah.
And they're going to think, oh my God, what do I do? In the meantime, that other person may have done the same thing as she did. So they're sort of negating each other. But it's very interesting to me how that happens. And
Yes, go ahead.
go, no, you go.
I have a major depressive disorder, garden variety depression, and then something called chronic suicidal ideation.
Say that again.
Chronic suicidal ideation.
Okay.
And I tell the audience, meaning for me and people in my tribe, the option of suicide is always on the menu as a solution for problems large and small. And when I say small, my car broke down a couple of years ago. I had three thoughts. One, get it fixed. Two, buy new. And three, hell, I could just kill myself. That's chronic. I know. And I tell the audience, I know that sounds crazy.
Yeah.
It is kind of crazy. But the thing about telling that story is almost every time I've told it on stage, there's been at least one person, sometimes more, in the audience who has that. And
Mm.
almost invariably, they have no idea it has a name. They think they're just some kind of freak and completely alone. Had a woman
Wow.
come up after a dental convention. Everybody else leaving the room. She's walking toward me. She's a dentist, crying so hard she can't speak. And she couldn't stop. So I said, you have chronic suicidal ideation. And she nodded yes. I said, you didn't know it had a name. You thought you were just some kind of freak. She nodded yes. I said, do you have a therapist back home? Nod yes. Well, do this. Set an appointment. Tell the therapist everything you learned today. And for God's sakes, tell me you Googled it. Don't tell me you learned it from a comedian. And a week later, I got an email from her. Frank, I think I was at that dental convention in large part simply to meet you. You've changed my
Wow.
life, and I cannot say that about a lot of people.
Wow.
She thought she's all alone. She thought that's just nobody thought this way. I mean, it is weird, but you know.
It is weird. And I would venture to say it's more common than people think. Uh,
Well, I must tell you, it's not in the DSM-5, which is Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Psychiatric Disorders. Hopefully, it'll be in the six, because I've said chronic suicidal ideation out loud to therapists who've been in the business 20 years, and they stare at me, Dan, like a pig staring at a wristwatch.
it's wild. Wild.
Yeah, they have no idea what I'm talking about.
It's crazy. It really is. Um, I'm astounded by it, but at the same time, not surprised. And I know that that's weird. Again, you do know what I've been through in the
Yeah,
family and so forth. So, um, as I'm listening and as I'm thinking about all this and thinking about everybody who watches our show all the time, and we are and I don't want this to sound too dark, okay? But our lives are, I mean, the end of we're living to die. So we're
yeah.
already on that quote unquote with a small s suicide mission. Okay. So
Yeah.
don't worry about killing yourself tomorrow. Give yourself another 60 years and you'll be able to do it anyway. Okay. It'll happen on its own. So
Well, and to that point, when I was 68, I was out walking the dogs, and just me and the dogs. And the thought of suicide crossed my mind, not the act, but the topic.
right.
And I stopped in my tracks and I thought, wait a minute, I'm 68. What's the hurry? I mean, how much longer do I have? If I was 38, let's chat about it. But
Right.
68? I haven't got that long anyway.
I get it. I get it. I always say I'm on the other side of the mountain.
Oh, well, I say I'm living on borrowed time and upside down alone.
Yeah, well, I'm a lot older than you, and I remember '68 vaguely, uh, but we're all on that.
Yeah.
So, uh, and I think that something like that puts it in perspective. It's like, why do it now? It'll happen on its own
Yeah, I
in
worry about
time.
younger people. I mean, I have a cycle, a 3-day cycle of depression. I go down the first day, flatten out, come back up the third. And I've been through it so many times. As a friend of mine says, depression is simply a visitor. It's going to come, it's going to leave. But
Yeah,
if you're young and you haven't been through this cycle many times, and young people tend to think in the immediate. Well, if I'm not going to feel any better than this, and I don't think I am, then why bother?
yeah,
That's what
yeah.
worries me. I mean, I've been through it I know when I start down, 72 hours later, I'll be,
I get it.
yeah.
But it's funny, but um, one of the things I tell people if they get angry or urinated off or whatever,
Right.
okay, I say wait 3 days. Wait 3 days. In 3 days, you'll forget about it. Today, you're really angry. Tomorrow, you'll be somewhat pissed off. By the third day, you're thinking about something else. And that something else will negate this whole other thing. You forget about it. And it maybe ties into that 3 day cycle that you were talking about.
Well, and there's a new protocol. I don't know how new it is, but new to me, call for suicide prevention called Stop, Drop, and Roll. And you can Google it. Google suicide prevention, stop, drop, and roll. The stop is okay, look, stop. Don't do anything. Don't make any major decisions for the next 24 hours. That's all I'm asking. Because, 24 hours from
Sure.
now, hopefully that'll be enough time where you go, oh, pardon the expression, dodged a bullet. Um,
Right.
there's the sense of humor again. Um, and I got to tell you, people say the funniest things to me they don't mean to.
Right.
Meeting planner called me. I was doing a keynote for her organization. And I said, well, Michelle, what do you want me to cover? Now she knows I put a gun in my mouth, but she goes, I don't know, just give me a couple of bullet points. So I let that hang in the air. And then she realized, oh my God. I go, look, relax. It was just too good to let it go by. Another guy called me late. He goes, I hope I didn't leave you hanging. I go, you want to rephrase? I'm in Vegas. The guy I knew, he goes, let's go to lunch. I go, where do you want to go? He goes, I don't know, pick your poison. Oh, no, I'm so sorry.
Oh, God, it's funny. It is funny. It's
Yeah,
funny.
that's that's
So,
the way my brain works. I hear those things.
yeah, it's the comedy of suicide.
Yeah.
As crazy as that sounds, it's the comedy of the dark side of life, the dark side of the moon, and we when we get there, when people get there, they forget that they had to go around from the light side to the dark side, and everything rotates. So,
Yeah.
and so
Well, I
does
think
life.
part of the process for me, comedians, you know this. I believe this will resonate. My job as a comic is to make people comfortable.
Yeah,
And so speaking of suicide and they call it comic relief for a reason. Um, I had a heart attack in the woods with the dogs by myself, half mile from the car. I had my cell phone, but I had T-Mobile, so I didn't have service. Had to walk half a mile, drive 2 miles home, and then and survive a 25-minute ambulance ride. So I get to the hospital. And by the way, here's a tip for you: if you have a heart attack and you arrive at the hospital, there's no waiting.
right.
My advice is, I don't care if you broke your nose. If you're waiting too long, just go. When they ask you what's wrong, I think I broke my nose, and I believe I'm having a heart attack. Instant service.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm in the triage unit. I mean, it's just getting worse by the minute. You're literally dying. Your heart muscle's dying. You're dying. But the nurse is. I can tell the nurse, even though she's a nurse, a professional, she's very uncomfortable because I'm dying. And so my job is to make people comfortable. Now, tragedy plus time equals comedy. The longer you do comedy, the shorter the time between I'm doing comedy in real time, having a heart attack. She says to me, Frank, look, no paperwork, obviously, but I do have to ask you one personal question. Through the pain, Dan, I said, I'm married, honey, but I love the way you think. She's trying not to laugh. She goes, no, no, no. Your full name's Frank Marshall King III. But what do you like to be called? through the pain, I said, Big Daddy. To this day, when I go back to Oregon Heart and Vascular, if I see anybody from that morning, hey, Big Daddy, how's it going? I'm dying. I'm trying to make her comfortable.
Right, exactly. I get it. I get it. I get it. So you got great care. You got great care.
Yeah.
I can guarantee it because the
Oh,
people love to be around you.
my philosophy of, because I've had two aortic valve replacements, a double bypass, a heart attack, three stents. My philosophy of is to be everybody's favorite patient.
There you go.
Because they do a good job across the board. However, if you make an emotional connection, they might pump just a little bit harder on your chest. He's not dying
It's
on my
truth.
watch today. Yeah.
It's a truth. It's very interesting, but I alluded to it earlier. My dissertation for my doctorate, it's to this point, is was what would students prefer as far as a professor goes? A professor who teaches what they did, right, in their other life, or a
Yep.
professor who teaches through theory. And they've actually never done it, but they espouse it. Okay. The results were surprising to me because
Okay.
I went in with a certain bias. Okay. And when you're doing research, you may have a bias, but you can't put that bias on the project itself, on the research itself. You may think, well, it's obvious to me that they're going to pick, what would you say?
I'd say I want somebody who's done it.
Correct. That's what I thought. Um, it was neither. It was how the professor taught.
Oh,
It was, did the professor, because you could have somebody who did something,
okay.
teaches about it, but listening to them is like watching drywall, right?
Yeah. That's a,
So, or you could have somebody who teaches theory and never did it, but is very entertaining. So
yeah.
it came down to how the professor taught and engaged the students and were they engaging. And it's the same thing that you're talking about with being the patient that everybody wants to go to.
Yeah. My what's the back end, the butt, the doctor that works on your hind end,
Urologist,
proctologist. Yeah.
proctologist.
Yeah.
Yes.
I went in to see him, and I'm sitting in the examining room, and he comes in and he says this, I've been looking forward to seeing you all day. Now, let's think about what he's going to be seeing of me momentarily. I mean, he's been looking forward to seeing me the entire. Yeah, that's really a compliment. I mean,
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
yeah. Well, and to the point of having, I think my talent is the have lived it, but also the way I talk about it. I was at
Yes.
Wofford College. There's a young woman there in the back of the room, and I got done with my suicide prevention in college keynote. She comes up, she goes, can I give you a hug? It's right in the middle of the Me Too movement. Everybody in the room's got a video camera on their phone. I'm thinking, oh, great. I can see the headline tomorrow in the paper, speaker gropes co-ed. So I pushed my pelvis back as far as I could, leaned over and gave her a really brotherly hug. And then I stepped back. I go, are you a hugger? She goes, no. What was that? She goes, I live with depression and so forth. I've been in counseling for 2 years. And the woman's got the diplomas on the wall. I mean, she, academically, she knows her stuff. No
Exactly.
context. She goes, 15 minutes into your little keynote, I am thinking to myself, this guy is inside my freaking head. You did more for me in 45 minutes than she did for me in 2 years
Wow.
because of that context. And I guess
Exactly.
to your study, it's not just the context, it's not just the lived experience, it's the way it comes across.
100%. 100%. And my own study was surprising to me. But then I realized, yeah, I get it. And
Yeah.
even when I present that as a question to my students, right? I said, what would you rather have? Inevitably, they say, well, somebody who did what they teach.
Mhm.
And then I explain the results and they go, oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
I
We've
tell
had
my
people
students,
like that. Yeah.
I tell my students, you want to move the audience emotionally. They'll do it. They'll trot out their keynote for me, and I go, it's bloodless. I could memorize it, do it, would no, they'd never know the difference. There's not
Right.
enough of you in there. There's not enough. I said, you want to move them from pole to pole, from laughter to tears and back. Had a woman come up after a show in Iowa, agricultural group. She goes, you made me laugh twice and cry once. I go, my job is done.
Wow.
I mean, that's what I want to do. I want to move them to tears and then bring them back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tears and bring them back.
That, well, that's on point. Because they'll remember that forever.
Yes. You
Forever.
know, my Angelou said, I think they won't remember what you said. I'm paraphrasing, but they will remember how you made them feel.
Exactly. It's truth. It's truth. I'll just interject this because we spoke about this before, that I used to do comedy. Okay.
Yeah.
Stand-up comedy. And I work with some relatively famous comics in their
Amazing.
yeah, in their day. And what I remember most about them is not their routine. It's the discussion we had afterwards or
Yeah.
before. So I got to know the person.
Mm-hmm.
The comedian I always liked. I mean, if I see them now, I mean, most of them are gone, but if I see videos of them, I watch, I laugh, I enjoy it. But I always think, boy, I remember sitting at the bar with him, or I remember talking to him in the wherever the restaurant, and that's what comes back, the person, that not just their delivery,
Mm-hmm.
but something they emit as a human being that people can relate to.
Yeah, my wife says she used to watch me, because on the road a lot of times. She didn't come to every show, but she came on occasion. And she goes, I love to watch you seduce the room.
So,
It's almost like a wave. I can see it going. You're picking them up as you go all the way to the back wall. I was on a,
yeah,
sh- I was on a ship one time and I had lunch with a guy. And then I did my stand up on the ship. And he came up afterwards, just he and I in the theater. And he goes, man, I got a question for you. I go, okay. He goes, how can you be the same guy at lunch that you are up there? I said, it took me 25 years. Because be yourself. It took me 25 years to be that guy both places.
yes, yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Look, life's a show, you know. It, it's a show, and you got a part in it. I always say, life's a movie, and you're the star. Okay,
Yeah.
it's probably trite, but it's true. And how do you want to be viewed as the star in your own movie? You know,
Mhm.
you want people to say, "Oh, I got to see that movie," or you go, "Nah, forget it. I'm not watching that movie. Forget that." You know what I mean? Guy's a loser. Forget about it. But no, I want to see him. I want to see him, and that's what you're talking about. If you can make people want to feel good about themselves, and to some degree important to themselves, that's that's a big deal to me.
Yeah. Agreed.
And, you know, I stand up in front of 40 students, 50 students, 20 students, um, all the time. And I want them to learn, but I also want them to be entertained so that they learn,
Yeah.
right? The stuff that made people laugh about, they remember, they'll
Yeah.
recall it, you know? And that's why I always say, if you learned anything today, if I brought you any wisdom or kindness or whatever, 30 years from now, when you walk by my dirt, just tip your hat and thank or wave or whatever.
Yeah.
But what you do, what comedians do, sincere comedians, there's a
Yeah.
difference. There is a difference. Um, changes people's lives, changes people's perspectives, brings joy to them, even when it's about suicide.
Yes. I did a show on the base Fort Irwin. It's the National Army Training Center. We did a couple of keynotes. The Army can pay you $2,500 and not tell anybody up the chain of command.
Right, I get you.
I said, look, pay me for 3 keynotes for the same day, so I get my $7,500. They go, great. We'll do it in three segments.
Right.
The last one, we're doing Q&A. And a nice young man in the front row said, soldier, you think the Army's doing enough for mental illness, mental health? I said, well, I can't speak for the Army, but I can speak for Fort Irwin because otherwise I wouldn't be standing here. I didn't know the general who ran the thing, 1 star, standing right behind me with a microphone. So I said, here's the deal, soldiers. Fort Irwin gives a shit. So I turn and I see the star in the middle of his chest. That's where they do it nowadays, so you don't get shot by the sniper with your.
Exactly.
I turned, I looked, I turned back to the audience and go, anybody besides me just poop your pants? Anybody? The general, to his credit, stepped up beside me and he goes, soldiers, Frank King is absolutely correct. Fort Irwin gives a shit. I mean, from the top down, that's
Yep.
it says you can. And so 3 months later, I get a DM from the base psychologist. A soldier walked in that morning and said simply, I'm depressed and suicidal, and I'm here because Frank King said I had to tell somebody.
Wow.
Because he knew that all the way up chain of command, they cared, they gave a shit whether he was depressed and suicidal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they may not have known that until he stepped up beside me.
Yeah. And you got to talk about it. I remember when I was in the Army, I had a platoon leader. This is basic training, and he just lost it. I mean, he had an explosive episode, not military, not with weapons, but. And I thought to myself, why isn't somebody helping this guy? Why isn't somebody saying, soldier, like you said, I want to take you to the company commander. I want to take you to the hospital. I
Yeah.
want to do this. Um, and I don't remember what happened at the end of this episode. And it may have happened, but it sticks in my head to this day. And it happened, oh, I don't know, 60 years ago,
Yeah.
maybe 58 years ago. And I always wondered about him. It's 58 years ago. Wondered about this fellow. I remember his name. I'm not going to say it, but um, exactly what you're saying is something that he needed.
Yeah. You need to know that people have, because in the military, it can be very career limiting if you start voicing,
Exactly.
if you have a, like a clearance of some kind, security clearance of some kind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And dentistry and physicians, and they can take your license. So it's
Yeah. Yeah. And you are around weapons all the time,
yeah.
which is more of a reason to take care of that.
Yeah, duh.
Yeah, it's like, wait a minute here. The guy's having a breakdown and you're not going to do anything. You're just going to let him explode. No, 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 no. Come on, come on. There's a tank over there and grenades over there. And he's got two rifles and a 50 caliber machine gun. And yo, let's just move him away. Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyway, it's such an interesting topic when you told me about it, when we discussed it, when I watched your videos, which, by the way, if you haven't out there, those of you listening, those of you watching this video, and don't forget, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Spotify, Good Pods, TikTok, Instagram. Make sure that you watch Frank King's videos.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll make sure I'll send you my favorite 4 TEDx talk links and my dry bar comedy, unless you already got it.
I got your dry bar. I was watching him. Send it again, and we'll post
Okay.
it under. We'll
Yeah.
post it under.
So that way they don't have to search for it on YouTube. They just see my 4 favorite. Let me leave you
Perfecto.
this. Let me leave you this because I got a group coaching session top of the hour.
Okay.
My favorite TEDx talk never saw the light of day because it was my 5th one, and TEDx doesn't like you to have more than 4. And it's a shame because it's the best one I've ever done. I got a standing ovation. It was called Mental Health and the Orgasm, Treat Your Depression Single-Handedly.
Wow.
And the closing joke that got me a standing ovation was, I mean, the things in there like, men who self-pleasure more than 21 times a month have a 20% lower rate of prostate cancer. So there is science.
Right.
And I said, if 21 times a month is a threshold, at this moment in time, I'm immortal. And at the end, I said, do you guys know why they call an orgasm an orgasm? And they're looking at me like, no. I said, because nobody can spell. Anyhow.
Oh, God. Frank, I know you got to go somewhere right now, but this has been great. Thanks so much. How do people get a hold of you?
Mentalhealthcomedian.com.
Perfect. Frank, thank you so much. Once again, Frank King, mental health comedian. Okay. Comedian talks about suicide and other things that we should be aware of, and
Yep.
hopefully helps us save our lives, save plenty of lives out there, which I'm sure you have. Uh, Remember, this has been Digging for Gold. I'm Dan Goldberg, our guest Frank King. Please subscribe. Go to dangoldberg.com, click on those little icons at the bottom and subscribe and follow us. Uh, Thanks again, Frank. This has been
My
terrific.
pleasure, man. See
Tip
ya.
of the hat to you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Take care.